I started running only because there was a club that trained in my suburb and my dad had been a runner, so he let me join. I didn't have any talent and I didn't really like running, but I bonded with one of the runners who was also new to the running club, and we would walk together when we were out of eyesight of the coach. He probably knew, but we thought we were getting away with it. That friend was also on a soccer team and started showing up less and less, so I started running more and more. I started to get better at running, and eventually I won a race, then another one, and then my dad got interested in my running, and I was expected to win. I started to not enjoy racing, and I was running scared most of the time. I developed a fear of losing, which eventually led me to quit the sport for several years. In the book that we're reviewing today, there are several stories like this involving elite female runners, and these runners were able to overcome their fears and go on to become amazing performers. Hi, and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running or maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Liz, and with my co-host Alan, we're going to talk with authors Molly Huddle and Sara Slattery about their book, How She Did It.
How She Did It is a compilation of stories from 50 legendary female distance runners spanning 6 decades. The book starts with a short introductory section, part 1, called The Experts. This addresses some key factors you need to pay attention to if you want to perform to your full potential as a female athlete. These are physical health, hormonal health, sound nutrition, and mental health. Part 2, The Athletes, is where you find the 50 female athlete profiles. This section is divided into a few subsections: the pioneers, the sort of 60s to 70s, the 1980s, the 1990s, the early 2000s to 2010, and then 2010 to 2020, which is kind of present day. The book ends with a section called the Cooldown, where there's a compilation of funny stories provided by some of the featured athletes. And then there's another section called Favorite Workouts. At the end, you can even test your ability to identify pictures of some of the women as young girls before they became legends. Let me tell you a bit about our authors and guests today. Molly Huddle. Molly Huddle is an American long-distance runner who competes in track and cross-country running events, I guess, across the world these days. She set the American record in the 5,000 meters at the 2014 Diamond League meet in Monaco, which has since been lowered. Molly Huddle is a 2-time Olympian and holds the American record at 10,000 meters. She placed 4th in the 2018 New York City Marathon in a personal best time of 2:26:44. Besides her impressive running career, she also writes, Is There No End to the Woman's Talents? She also writes for Runner's World magazine and, of course, has written a book, which we're going to talk about today.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Sara. Sara Slattery is an American middle and long distance runner who mainly competes on the track. She has represented the United States in the IAAF World Cross Country Championships at both junior and senior levels. After a successful NCAA professional career, Sara went on to coaching. She's in her 8th season at Grand Canyon University. I think if I
I just stepped down this last season. So I did 8 years and I'm currently not coaching. Just the balance with our family right now. Our kids are getting older. So my husband travels quite a bit and I was traveling all the time with coaching. So I wanted to be home with the kids more often.
Okay, yeah, that's completely understandable. Anyway, you had a really great run at Grand Canyon University because it seems that the athletes had broken many school records since you arrived there. So hopefully your legacy will keep on going. So welcome to both of you to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So I guess the first question would be, and you guys can both answer, or like if one of you wants to answer, it's fine. But how did you two decide to write the book?
I'll start. Molly and I, we've been friends. We've known each other since the beginning of college. I think I met Molly her freshman year at the NCAA championships, and I was really impressed. I think she broke the American junior record that year, and we were both in the NCAA final together, and we warmed down together. We just talked, and we became close friends, and then we'd see each other at more meets, and we and then like became closer as like post collegiates, and both of our husbands we met in college as well, and they're good friends, and so Molly started training out in Arizona for winter training, and I grew up in Arizona, so we would be out here around the same time, and we'd go for runs and get dinner together and do a lot together. And as I got into coaching and like this was like right before pandemic, Molly was out here training, and we were both talking about there were some big stories about girls in this like leaving the sport or having bad experiences in the sport, and we would see it all the time. And that was actually like a big reason for me, like in college, like when I was looking at colleges, I really wanted to find a place where girls continue to get better, like throughout their experience in college. And we'd see so like they had what was called the Foot Locker curse at the time, like when we were going through Foot Locker in the 90s and early 2000s, where these Foot Locker champions, or there had never been a Foot Locker champion that had won an NCAA championship until I think is it Molly Sedell recently.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's only been two that have ever made an Olympic team. And so, but yet on the men's side, it was significantly like there had been 12, like more than 20 men that had won NCAA titles. And there was, I think, 12 that had made Olympic teams. So significant differences in the genders. And so we were like, well, why is that? And what are women facing that men aren't? And what are some things that we can do to like help? What are things that we know that have helped us to have long careers that we could share with others? And we knew so many women that didn't have those experiences. And so we really wanted to like share like how, like, what are the key pieces to having long careers? We could hear that all day long. Like, and for both Molly and I, we're stubborn runners and very motivated, but you could know what you're supposed to do, and you could have people tell you what you're supposed to do, but unless you see it play out well in others, like you won't adapt it. And so we felt like the stories are really important for girls to hear, so that they could connect with these runners that have experienced these things just like them, and see that if you see it through, you can have long, healthy careers.
I can definitely see that happening, because I mean, I remember when I was in high school, and like I think I would relate to that stubbornness, because you know, sometimes the coach would say something and I'd just be like, yeah, whatever. Or not so much the coach, because the coaches, like, you know, they would be there in practice, but they weren't there at home. And so at home, like my parents would say something, that I should, I don't know, like I need to have meat with my pasta. And I would just be like, no, I don't.
But if Paula Radcliffe tells you that, you eat it, right?
Exactly.
That's how I would have been.
Yes, exactly. So had I had this book when I was in high school, I probably would have eaten a lot more meat to keep my iron levels up.
Yes. Yeah. Just little things like that make a big difference. Like, and it's little adjustments and I think we feel like this is important for the girls, but also for their parents and their coaches to read, so that they understand like the influence that they have on the athlete. And that knowledge is so important, and the way they bring them up in the sport is really important too. So I think that's like our key like target is getting girls early, like in middle school, high school, when they're first starting the sport, so they start creating these habits early on, and that we don't see as many injuries going in like in college and beyond, so that it's like preventing those long-term effects and why people are dropping out at that time in sport. And a lot of it is just those early habits weren't formed in the right way.
Is the problem kind of solved now, do you think? We'll see, you know, we've had the Mary Kane incident. That was the big public one, but we've had lots and lots of stories now and changes in attitudes of coaching. Are we going to see girls coming through juniors and transferring their abilities. I guess the one that comes to mind in my head would be Caitlin Tui. Seems to have got a handle on what she's doing. I don't know from a distance, but are we going to see a better result now?
I'm optimistic about that. I think you do, like, I know I've still come across, talented high school runners who are sort of stuck in the old cycles of maybe under fueling or overtraining or just kind of doing too much at like too advanced of training at a young age. And so I think, like Sara said, it's more getting that knowledge to the parents because I think sometimes the parents are unaware that that is actually not how you produce a long-term successful athlete. But a lot of the girls, like Sara and I noticed at the national high school national championship, we went to go help out at it last year, and we do think it's trending in the right direction. It does, not by all means it's not done. There still needs to be more done to make sure these girls are fueling well and are healthy and are, going through puberty at the right times and not having delayed growth spurts and things like that. But like, I do think that messaging is out there loud enough. I think it's more common. The knowledge of the mistakes that, were being made in girls' sports in the past, or at least in distance running, are public enough that college coaches and high level coaches know about them and are steering the girls in the right direction. I think NC State's program does do a pretty good job with that. I think Coach Lori was a professional runner herself, wasn't she, Sara? Wasn't Lori?
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, and so I think she knows those things and are passing them down to the girls, and they're having a great season and healthy and successful in that way. So the more you see of that and the more success they have doing it that way, like, yes, the better it will get.
Like you featured a lot of athletes in the book. How did you decide who to feature? And were there any stories that you maybe wanted to get, but you didn't? Or were there stories that you did get, but then you ended up leaving them out?
That was probably the hardest part of writing the book, was deciding on that, because honestly, like the amount we did 80 interviews. We keep thinking of more that we should have done.
Like, we basically wrote another book that got cut.
I think our main, like Molly, you could maybe touch on what our criteria, what we were trying to target for that. But like, we wanted it to be a diverse in terms of like generations. So we really felt the history, the beginning of the sport is really important so that the girls know where we're coming from. And we felt like a lot of those stories were, like, even the mother-daughter stories were really impactful because it showed how much had changed in the sport from the generation their mom was in and to the current generation. So we really wanted to have a history. We felt like having a diverse range of, so it's a distance running, but like we really wanted 800 to marathon, and we wanted middle distance, and long distance in there. So there was different distances. Also, it's heavily American, but we wanted different ethnicities and backgrounds, and we tried to have different countries. Getting the different backgrounds was hard because we had to translate some of the material. But just understanding that a lot of those same issues that we face in the US, like a lot of the other countries are facing as well, or they may face different things that our girls might not realize, but how the sport can unite a lot of the girls. So I think we were trying to, it will never be perfect. There are so many times that Molly and I are like, oh, we should have added this person, or we probably could have had 10 more chapters. But I think our main criteria was like, there had to be a level, like they had to have made a world championship team and raced at a high level, and we wanted them to have a longish career, so showing a longevity in the sport. So those were the main things we were looking for.
Okay.
Was it hard to find the people, the right kind of people, or did you just start with the people who were like next to you?
Basically, yeah, I felt like one of our strengths was that we are close to a lot of these women, have raced them, and we have their contact info. And they would say yes to talking to us because we're we're somewhat friendly with almost everyone in the book or have raced them. And also pretty much everyone we asked was very happy to like contribute to basically mentoring via book form young female athletes. So actually reaching out and getting a hold of everyone was really easy. I think that's why the potential chapter list grew so large, because we would just brainstorm and we'd add people and add people. And I mean, I think when the editor asked us to cut women, I actually added like 5 more instead of cutting. So, so yeah, we found ways to try and cut as little information as possible. But
yeah. One of our questions usually at the end is, do you have any ideas for another book? But it looks like you've got another book.
It's already made.
We actually did audio in like verbal interviews with everyone first and transcribe them. So we thought it would be cool to make a podcast season out of it. We haven't done it yet, or something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of material to work with.
Oh, that's pretty
amazing.
good.
I think that was the best part, was interviewing, like these were a lot of women that we looked up to as well. And so getting to interview them and hear their stories, we would compete against them, but like in our era, there wasn't social media and the outlets like there are now. So we would go to the line and we'd get to have dinner with them or things, but we didn't get to know the other side of like really what got them there, any obstacle, like a lot of the obstacles that they faced or things, that the hurdles. So it was interesting to hear those sides of those athletes and understand the human side of them as well.
We see from your website that you had a sort of standard question set that you went through, because you published that on your blog.
Yeah.
But in fact, when you look at the each section for each athlete, they're actually quite different. They have sort of general themes, but some people focus a lot on one thing versus another thing, and they actually all came out quite varied, I think.
Yeah, I was worried maybe people would just, yeah, it would be like short answers with very similar, like my struggle was injury or something like that over and over again. And we did have a lot of overlap. That's part of the things we edited out. It would be if they were just very similar, but people spun off into deeper directions, and we got a lot of really good storytelling just off of like 1 or 2 questions. So yeah, it was great.
Is there anybody that really is really burning that you kind of would love to include but couldn't for some reason?
One that I regretted not reaching out to is Benita Johnson, or Benita Willis from Australia. I think she's actually a close friend, but she was one of the first. She won World Cross very young and had a really long career, holds many Australian records, and she was just a really tough athlete, but also like I don't know. I felt like her story was really good. It would have been a good one to add.
I would have liked to talk to Caster Semenya or Francine Niyonsaba, just because their experience is something like you see in the news a lot, but it's such a different struggle. And, we have DSD athletes or even like transgender or non-binary athletes out there, and we want the book to be something that athletes can see themselves in. And not that all of those athletes are under the female category, but Caster and Francine are, and Francine, like, they didn't really want to talk publicly. I think they've been very like burned by a lot of the media that they've done. So I totally understood, but we did try to reach out, and I hope they write their own books soon. So
maybe when it's really all finished and enough time has gone by, we'll get the whole story from those people.
Yeah,
I hope so too. On a personal note, I have one of my children's transgender, so I was kind of looking for that, and I saw that you spoke with Nikki Hiltz,
yes, yep.
who's an advocate for LGBT, which was cool. Did you target these people, or did they just pop out as you were like? Did you target Nikki for that reason?
Well, she would have been on our list regardless of her being non, like.
But she made the cut to be in the book, I guess.
Yeah, she's well qualified as an athlete, but also her as a person, like in her, like what she's dealing with, like I think brings out like we really wanted to have her so that other girls could, or other transgenders could like identify with her and understand the struggles that she's dealing with as well. So I think twofold, like she's an amazing athlete like regardless of what she is.
Yeah, and I know with Nikki, it's how she did it. And I know Nikki is, her pronouns are they, them, but they've said before that they feel very comfortable and they race in the women's category.
Okay.
And we're really, they were very happy to talk with us about what they work on with the Trevor Project and what it's like competing and what it's been like their journey so far. So we just know there's other athletes like them out there looking to them and really seeing an important role model, and we wanted that for the whole book. We think the book is like one of the reasons we wrote it, Sara and I were talking about, is there's like I felt like in my career I was lucky to have a group of really good role models that I joined after college, and I learned so much from the women in the group I was training with, and we hoped this book would be sort of like a little package of mentors for for girls in case they couldn't interact with or get that advice and experience from someone around them. It would be cool to just at least have these voices in the book. And like Sara said, they're so impactful when there's someone you look up to and who's excellent at what they do too.
Yeah, the other one that struck me was Sarah Vaughan, managing to have a baby while studying, while developing an athletic career.
And also just the way that she was kind of almost when she got pregnant, like almost brushed off to the side. Like had she just let herself listen to the messaging that she was getting, like it could have turned out really different.
Yeah, I think like at the time they didn't know what to do, like the university and they were just like whatever you need, you can continue or you cannot continue. And they didn't think that they kind of advised her to not really continue. And I think Sara sought that out on her own and she actually got the NCAA. I think what was interesting is she saw that as an opportunity to help others as well as herself and she helped change the legislation in the NCAA regarding pregnancy, helping like provide help while girls are like going like they get an extra season. They also get like help with finishing their education. So that was a huge, she had a huge impact on pregnant young women in the NCAA. And she now has a foundation that's providing childcare to help girls who like mothers and not just athletes, but mothers in education.
And she's still setting PRs today too, which is amazing. She's like moved up in distance and set PRs all the way, like all along the way, even while she's had her family.
That's amazing. And finished school, which also seemed like it was almost like she was being told like, oh, well, usually when girls get pregnant, they don't finish school. And it's interesting. Like she was getting those messages and finished anyway.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
And she and her husband like really worked together they were both on the team. And like, I know it wasn't easy for either of them. Like they both worked hard to make sure that they finished and they both like continued their careers.
So I guess we can kind of talk about social media because like some of these athletes like Molly Seidel are pretty well known because, we have social media now. I think social media also has like a bad rap because, it can be very toxic. And so you kind of get this idea that it's a negative thing. But in your book, you actually mentioned that it can be a positive place where, you can get a lot of inspiration and motivation. And so I was wondering if you have any tips for, like let's say for younger people that are navigating that space to make it a more positive experience.
Do you want to go, Molly?
Yeah, Sara, I don't know if I have tips because I'm just thinking like if I had a 15-year-old daughter, I would probably tell her not to have social media yet.
Yeah, my husband and I have this discussion all the time, like when we're going to allow our kids to have phones or be on social media.
And like, I'm so glad I didn't have it in high school.
Yeah,
Me too.
And the amount of time that can be wasted on that, like doing things.
Yeah, like a lot of the girls and well, anyone at that age, I wonder just if they're mentally ready to like filter through that they know it's a highlight reel, that they know it's not to compare themselves. I don't know if it's possible at that age to like have that awareness, but obviously you would want to follow all your favorite athletes. I'd be on there following like Lynn Jennings and Joan Samuelson and whoever was on. So because I remember like Sara and I also part of the motivation for writing the book was like we would scour the media, like newspapers and magazines, for information on our favorite female athletes.
And it was all male centered, so there were very few like where books or articles like where you could find information on women's running. So if you did, I just like would read over it and over it. I remember Susie Favor had a book, and I had like I don't know. I would clip out articles all the time. So I think with social media though, I don't know. I think you want to have positive people that post things that are realistic. So like having the athletes, like I think it would be a great thing for if they're in athletics to like keep in touch with each other. Like Molly and I knew each other through some of the national meets and stuff like that. So it's a way to keep in touch. I used to write letters to the people or email some of my friends. So it's a more like very rapid way of communication where you can keep in touch.
It's okay, Sarah. I come from the era of fax machines, and
yes. I know. I try to get my kids to do pen pals, and they're like, it takes like a week for this to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you get something in the mail, and you look in the mail.
It's fun.
Yeah. So, but I just think creating like, and I think it's imperative, just like to make it a healthy way, like finding positive role models that you can follow and positive people in your life. Don't follow people that create negative content or unrealistic goals or things that aren't true, So I think that has to come also from your parents and like talking to them about what is good and what is reality and what is fake on social media, and having positive role models like some of these athletes would be great. But it's difficult to like navigate those things. I'm still like figuring out that balance. We're still in the wild west in the new beginnings of social media and things, and trying to navigate what's healthy and what's not. So I think just like a small doses of it to keep in touch with people is great.
I guess what you can't do is eventually you have to lift up the curtain and all the access is there. So at some stage you've got to have educated people to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's part of coaching. I guess if they're elite, it is part of coaching. If you're an elite person because you have a lot of focus, it's certainly part of parenting. You've got to teach your kids how to do it. So because there's no way you can avoid that they're going to be exposed.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that I feel like it is a part of an athlete's life. Like it's something that's in all of our lives now. And I'd say like as a young athlete, you might be comparing your performances and your trajectory to someone else's. You're already like very hyper aware at that age. And so you do have to, I think, be armed with a way to manage it. But like Ailish McColgan said in the book too, like girls can DM her with questions, which is wonderful, like that you're that accessible. Mm-hmm. So it is a double-edged sword that I hope there's some kind of like protocol going forward, like some kind of like, this is what you tell your kids. This is how you get your athletes that you coach to not be harmed by it.
That would be so great. But I feel like, two people can see the same post and not feel the same way about it, which is like really difficult because you can, like, I think of myself, like, let's say I had a mini me from, 1995 sitting beside me, and we were both looking at like, Sara Hall and how fast she just ran. And my previous self would have probably been like, oh, I'll never be that good. And I would be down about that. And my current self is like, yeah, you go, Sara Hall. Like, I'm totally inspired by you because like, you're kind of almost my age. So, and it's like that with everything, I think, on social media. Like, two people can look at a post and you just read through the comments, and sometimes like, two people will have seen the same post, and one of them will be like, oh, this is so great. Yeah, I tried the same thing. And then the other one will be like, oh, this is really bad advice and nobody should listen to this. So it's, it's really interesting. On the, well, it's not really social media related, but just talking about people that are inspirational, it seems that in the 2010 to 2020 section, there were several women that ended up like training with or being inspired by Shalane Flanagan, and they credit her for helping them adjust to pro running. Do you think that like that's kind of, it just seemed like Shalane's name popped up several times, but is it sort of a common thread where, women runners try and help each other?
Yeah, I think for so long there, like, I mean, women's distance running has like really, I mean, Shalane's mom was in that era where she had like the first women's scholarship. And then they really didn't have equal events across the board. And well, like 1980, what was 84 was when they brought the marathon, and it wasn't until like 2004 that they had the steeplechase. So like really like women's distance running is so far behind men. And for a long time, men trained together and they were in training groups and they trained like did a lot of things. And we had that in the college system for a while, but we didn't have it in the professional system. Like when I was graduating, there were like very few training groups to go to. And so you're kind of navigating this world where you're trying to figure out like, should I go, like, are there other girls to train with? Like there was like two groups. There was one in Mammoth and Ray Tracy where Molly was at, and then like one in Minnesota. And so outside of that, now there's like so many more options and a lot more women doing that together, and you're seeing huge benefits from it. And they're creating good, healthy environments where girls are like pushing each other, but recovering well together, fueling well together, like making like going after big goals like a positive thing in their group. And so I think Shalane had a huge impact because she didn't have like she was on her own for a long time, and she joined like Jerry's group that was mostly men, and she kind of brought in some women to help her like Kara and Lisa Knoll, and I think Emily Emfield also were the first few women that came with her. But I think she really craved having that because she saw the impact that it had on the other men that she was training with, and how they like she had Matt Teagenkamp, Chris Linsky, Evan Yeager. There's a ton of guys in Jerry's group that were training together and benefiting from that week after week, and she was kind of on her own, and so that she wanted that. She wanted that as well. So then starting the Bowerman Babes and then continuing that and helping with the coaching and bringing more girls in, and they've gotten back to the college level, which will be interesting too. But I think it has a huge impact. And I think more and more girls are seeing how positive. Molly is a huge example of that too. And I think she can explain her situation and how that was impactful for herself.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, Shalane definitely, like a lot of the women that we're talking about Shalane helping guide them are the women from the Bowerman group in the book. We talked to a lot of those women. And in my own group, Kim Smith was probably like the Shalane for us, guiding us through healthy training, healthy fueling, how to rest, how to train hard, making us less afraid to train hard. And just kind of like she and Shalane both were just very, they would go back and forth a lot in races and finish close together and just show us how good you could be. Like I think a lot of women were looking up to them and thinking, wow, like it's been a while since, well, Kim is from New Zealand, but with Shalane, I know for the American girls, it's been a while since an American woman was able to get that medal or do that, run that fast. Like it really was motivating for that whole like generation of athletes. So, and it is interesting to look back on, the mother-daughter interview with Shalane and her mom. Like her mom had to deal with so much, she had to spend so much energy constructing her own opportunities and even her own gear, her own everything. And then you see, once all that's put into place, her daughter could just spend all her energy on being great at running. And look what that turned into. She was such an inspiration for a whole generation of athletes. So that stuff really makes a difference.
It's kind of the same for Liz and Alice McColgan, which is the other sort of mother-daughter interview that you did. It's incredible, really, when you look at one generation, how much difference there is between the, what would you call it, the sort of playing field that the early pioneers and just in the 70s.
Yeah.
I was already at college, so during that period, so it's incredible the difference. There's an amazing difference in terms of what's developed over one generation for women's running, even events. There was no marathon. There was no Olympic long distance events. There were no training programs designed. The people were running with the guys. However, they didn't have social media pressures. They didn't have contracts to have to try to win and then behave according to the contractual requirements. So are things so much easier now after one generation, or are they mostly easier, or are they in fact in some ways worse?
I mean, I think it's just you're seeing a big advancement in obviously some of it's the shoe technology, but like you're seeing a lot of times go down on the women's side as far as world records and American records in the half and the marathon on the track. And I think some of it is just like the women can spend their energy just racing and being good. And they have all this pooled information from generations. Like it hasn't been that long. I mean, anyone complaining about like the depth of, for example, in the NCAA cross country, like there's talk that, oh, like the depth on the women's side, just it's not as deep as the men's. And it's, well, we start, a lot of that is because the women started later. And so every generation we're going to get, exponentially better until we catch up with sort of the length of time that the men have had to be good distance runners. And I think we're also like, I think what's happening now is we're sort of fine tuning the training and the approach, and to the appropriate timelines for female athletes. And we're seeing that really pay off too with great performances. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of records be broken by the female athletes going forward.
I noticed that you put one of the original pioneers, Paddy Catalano Dillon, on the front page. Was that a conscious choice, or was it just a good photograph?
It's a great photograph.
Certainly is.
It's both. I mean, she's a pioneer in breaking through like a lot of the barriers for women early on in the sport. But yeah, just that finished photo is a great photo and encompasses a lot of what, I don't know, we're trying to show in the book.
Yeah, the designers sent it to us, and just the vibe of the photo, like the emotion of the photo, I was like, okay, that's what we want for the book. It's like empowering and barrier breaking and motivating. Like it's a great photo.
Certainly works, because I picked the book up and went, wow, who's that on the front?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You didn't know. I was afraid some people might think it was a book about Patty because she was on the cover, but sadly, not everyone has the face recognition for Patty Catalano. But they will after they read it. They'll know Patty.
Sure.
Yeah.
Was there anything that really stood out to you in the stories? Like anything that, you mentioned that you had to sometimes maybe cut out things that were too similar in the stories. Like, was there a common thread that you noticed in most athletes, like either mindset or that they, everybody that had a long career maybe didn't start off in running, like they didn't specialize early or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that was a big theme for us, was that most of these girls were multi-sport athletes. We calculated it, didn't we, Molly? It was close to 90% of the women in this book started out in other sports and played multiple sports before college. And then when we were doing the first part of the book, when we were talking about bone health, and our Dr. Tinforty had done the stress fracture study and found that you're 60% less likely to have a bone injury if you played a ball sport before high school. So that was pretty cool to see that, and see that a lot of the women that had longevity in the sport had played multiple sports. A lot of those themes, we really wanted to be seen through the book and have parents understand. So that's why we want to give this to girls when they're younger, and the parents when they're younger, so they know this information and can encourage their young girls not to specialize too early, and to figure out what they're good at, and play many different, try a lot of different things, so that they work on different things, work on different muscle groups, play team sports, play ball sports, all these things that will help them long term. Maybe they will be a great runner, but if they do want to become a runner, they'll be more versatile and have longer careers.
And have better bone density and have less likely to be injury prone to enable that.
Yeah. Did you see another theme, Molly?
Well, I was going to just piggyback off of that theme and say, I don't know if you all found that obvious, or as a parent, of course you would have your kids try multiple sports to see what they like, and then they're just getting those other movements in as a side effect. But I actually have talked to some parents who have very young kids, and they'll proudly show me their 10-mile results, and I'm like, I don't know that that's the best way. Like it happened to me recently that a parent showed me that their young child was an age group record holder in the 10 mile, and it was a pretty young athlete, like single digits of age. And I think that's what maybe they think is the trajectory for like being a great runner, and it's actually the opposite. I think it's probably better to try other sports and not be training that much at that age. And so it does happen. It is, and I think it's just a little misguided. I don't think it's intended to be like poor parenting or coaching. So that's why, you know, it's an important theme to point out, even though it may seem obvious to some other athletes or parents. And then another theme that jumped out was just like how many athletes dealt with performance anxiety, or maybe like not enjoying the sport as much until they kind of faced that part of the sport and got some sports psychology coaching tips or broke through that barrier in that way. And we think of, I think, elite athletes being immune to that, or just knowing how to, you know, they're born just knowing how to handle it. And a lot of them, like Hazel Clark, you know, never figured it out despite running so well, and said she could have enjoyed the sport more and probably run faster. She was convinced it was limiting, even though she still did so well. And I think that's maybe something people don't expect. You know, when everything looks great from the outside, you could still be dealing with something like that. And I think that's really relatable to a lot of female athletes, a lot of athletes in general. So that was something that came out a few times in the book besides Hazel's story that was kind of surprising, but like fairly common once you go through all the stories.
I see Liz picked that out on her question list almost exactly. Just what you said. We were going to ask you the exact question about it, and we were going to ask you, well, do you have any tips for parents or young athletes
with performance anxiety?
With performance anxiety, I mean, I noticed Emma Coburn was, as a youngster, was fraught with that as well.
Which is so surprising to me because she's such a cool customer on the track now.
So
like she's like unflappable. Like the barrier could be the wrong height. They could, like, she's got it. She doesn't get so it's amazing to see that you can come through that.
I think for parents is identifying those things early on if they see those things happening, and discussing it with their kids, and like why they feel that way, and are they like figuring out ways to if they don't know how to do it, like maybe talking to someone that can help them with overcoming that. And maybe it's like testing in smaller stages to where they can get to the big stage and not feel as much anxiety. So practice, and then just mental cues and things like that. But I think identifying it early on and taking care of it is like probably the best thing. And so that just as my kids are starting sport, seeing them get tested and like not being able to do anything for a few years with COVID, and then being put in situations where like they're racing for the first, like my kids are doing swimming and they play soccer and football and baseball, but like when we were at a swim meet and not raced for so long, I remember them not wanting to go to the meet, and then getting through that and figuring it out, and then doing it, and then realizing they're good and they can get better. And I think it's just steps. Like, so I don't know. I think you have to like watch your kids and see how they handle those situations, and if it is like hampering their performance, and discussing ways like that could help them overcome those things.
And I was going to say there's some more concrete tips from an expert in the book too, from Roisin McGettigan in the early chapters, who's a counselor and sports psychology expert.
I think also the message is that because of all these like high level women that dealt with the performance anxiety, it doesn't mean that because your child or you have that issue that you can't overcome it, or that you're not destined to be good at running or at any sport, basically.
Well, like the mental side is as big as the physical side in many cases. And so like understanding that part and navigating it together is huge, because it affects not just, you'll see it in running, but it'll affect you in other parts of your life the same way. So handling
Sorry, my dog. He's like burying a bone right next to me, or a sock or something. It's like
Speedy here is Rusty.
I didn't realize we were all bringing our dogs on the podcast. I would have brought my dog.
Say hi to Speedy.
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 They They haven't met yet, but they will soon.
I know.
Next month.
Your dog's called Speedy.
Yeah, we just got him this summer. Our kids named him Speedy.
He's so
That's
cute.
cool. What's your dog called, Molly?
He came with the name Rusty, and we just didn't change it, so he's Rusty. Yep.
That's cool. I have a small dog. He's called Killian.
Like the Killian
Journey.
Yeah.
The trail
ultra
runner.
Yeah.
Oh, the ultra runner.
Except most normal people, like, they don't know that Killian is an ultra runner. So they're just like, oh, that's a cool name.
Isn't it Irish though too? Killian.
That's usually what they say. Oh, are you Scottish or are you Irish?
So I guess maybe we should talk about the Mary Kane story a little bit. You didn't feature Mary Kane, but you did feature another. I think a lot of listeners, anyway, they know the Mary Kane story because even non-runners probably saw it in the New York Times. In your book, you featured another runner who trained under Alberto Salazar and was kind of subjected to the same opinions about weight that Mary Kane was, that led kind of to her like just not thriving. And the difference was that this other athlete discovered she had celiac, and she just seemed to, I wouldn't say not be affected by what her coach was telling her about losing weight and being too heavy. It's just she didn't believe that was the reason why she was not performing, and she pursued her own trajectory and ended up actually finding out she had celiac disease and turning that around to benefit her. So I don't know if you have any tips for female athletes who might be getting those kinds of messages from their coach, because, you know, that is, I mean, it's a common, we still hear it, like even from like some of our training partners, that, oh, it's all about like power to weight ratio. And so if you lose weight, then, you know, you're going to be better. But that's not how it works. So I don't know if you have any tips for females that might be getting that message as well.
Yeah, I say, like, in running culture, that's maybe a holdover that needs to change. I think it's a misconception that you can see fitness, and I think it's one of the ways that the sport really doesn't fit female athletes because, you know, obviously as women, you're meant to hold body fat in different areas and different percentages of it to be like hormonally healthy. Like, it's actually very important for your hormonal health and therefore your performance and your energy levels and your power to have a healthy weight and to try and achieve a certain look that maybe is like what the men end up looking like when they're training hard. And the men, to be honest, a lot of them are probably under fueling too. But I just think for women, it's we're just meant to look a little different. And so it's not at odds with the sport. I think that that kind of advice and that kind of coaching is something that definitely needs to change. And we hope that the women in the book, even though they're at peak fitness, like, and it took years and years to get there, like, there is a variety of body types. There's very strong women, and there's like all different extremes of shapes and sizes performing at the top level. And it really just matters that you're healthy and you're putting the work in. I always think of weight as being like a side effect of the training and not something that you try and achieve to become fit. It's just, you know, very far down on one of the very important variables for training. And so fueling would be very high above that. Fueling well, recovery, training hard, sports like I would put almost everything ahead of that variable of weight. So, you know, you really just can't see things like VO2 max or your lung capacity or your red blood cells. And that's what matters in fitness. Sara, I don't know, like in the coaching, like how did you deal with that as a coach?
I tried to make like menstrual cycles and fueling and all of these things like a regular part of our conversation when I was talking with my athletes, both male and female, because I saw issues on both sides. Like, yeah, so I think I have both men and women that will like that dealt with under fueling, and the women are luckier because we have markers with our menstrual cycle that tells us when we're not fueling properly, but men don't get that biomarkers. So
yeah,
it's harder on the men's side because it'll pop up in different ways. So they'll have iron deficiencies or lethargy or not performing well or different symptoms. So same symptoms, but they don't have the menstrual cycle to like be a really marker. So I think just making those conversations not uncomfortable and making it a regular part of your coaching conversation with them, and then making fueling a priority as a coach, like, and figuring out those ways with the athletes so that they understand the impact that has on their training and their performance long term, is really, really important. And not making it hard for your athlete to come talk to you about certain things is important too. So they feel comfortable that they can have a conversation with you.
I was going to say too, it's like a critical age to know this stuff too, like the high school, junior high, high school age, because I think we touched on it in the book with some of Dr. 1040's research, but like at that age, you're building bone. And if you're under fueling, that you'll carry that bone loss with you later in life. And so we really need coaches to be aware that like, if they're pushing a message that would cause an athlete to underfuel, that can like at that age, that's actually got a long-term impact.
Yeah, the first section of the book where like before you featured the athlete profiles, you had a section that went over like 4 topics: physical health and injury prevention, hormonal health, nutrition, and then mental health. And it does mention somewhere in there that like most of your bone density is acquired, I think, before the age of like 18.
I guess the good thing with runners is we tend to be fairly open about various bodily functioning when you're training, etc. So the conversation is maybe easier to have. I know the only people I talk to about, menstrual cycles and things like that are not my daughters, but sometimes fellow runners.
I think making this a really not uncomfortable, like just a normal part of conversation. And for so long, like it wasn't easily discussed among people. It was like hard or uncomfortable. And so it's just like a normal bodily function. And if you make it like that, then you can make it less uncomfortable for people so that they know, all right, is my iron up? Am I getting enough sleep? Do I have my period this week? Did I, all these things. So it's just like normal part of your checklist and not just like an uncomfortable situation that you're afraid to talk to your mom about.
Was there anything specifically that really surprised you when you made the book that you maybe didn't? You're athletes, so you would have thought, okay, there's probably going to be a lot of conversation about injuries and coming back from injuries and not coming back very well from injuries. And there's probably going to be talk about, certain things that are just part and parcel of being an elite athlete. But was there anything that surprised you?
I think just the more athletes, like the more women told their stories, the more you saw that their trajectory wasn't like as direct as maybe it looked if you're a fan watching. Okay. You really only are your attention is drawn to the person winning, and you don't notice the person having the bad day or the person just starting. And when they tell you and take you through it, I think it would help as a young athlete to realize, okay, like, especially as a woman, you look at all these female trajectories, they might not look like the men's where it's like you get to college and you're getting better. You might take a little bit of a slump as, maybe you're developing or maybe you battle something and you come out of it. And that's what we want women to see, like stay in it, stay in the sport. Whether you're going to be an elite athlete or not, we think you gain so much from having that in your life. And, if you can see these women battling through the rough patches and coming out the other side and having this great body of work, at age 38 or 39 or 40. And we want that to be what is mirrored and what's told.
Yeah, I don't, this is a positive spiel for social media. And I don't do it very often. What you were talking about, you only see the trajectory, from outside, you only see the sort of the wins. And then you join a dotted line to the wins and you go, whoa, they're just going up. You don't see the valleys in between because they're not publicized by the media. I remember sending a DM to, is it Laura Thweet? Because she came fourth in the, when Alafine Tuliamuk won the qualifying marathon trials. She came fourth and I was watching it live on TV and they just came along. She just finished fourth. and just lost her Olympic dream. And media arrive and they stick a microphone in her face and say, how do you feel? And she was so fantastic in terms of composed and almost through the tears, able to be coherent. And I thought that was an incredible performance to some extent, to have it all together, to be able to do that. And you don't see that very often. There must be, for every one gold medal, there's probably 50 of those. And it's true, you kind of don't see it. And I was really full of admiration for the lady to be able to do that. I noticed as well that the guy who came forth never gave any interviews and left and never spoke to anyone, was kind of unable to do it. And I wouldn't blame him. I think I'd probably be him if I was in the same situation. But that's probably the one area where I have something positive to say for social media in terms of supporting an athlete. I was able to see that and not just join the dots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, shout out to Laura. She is a lovely person, so I'm not surprised that she was able to do that. She's very inspiring and supportive fellow Saucony athlete. But yeah, that's also why I started a podcast about women's sports, because a lot of the times the only people that get to tell their stories are the top three or the medalists, and there's just so many wonderful role models in the sport that maybe are just a step or two outside the limelight. So yeah, we can tell our own stories on social media, but I don't know, the access is great. We liked Sara and I talked a little bit about whether a physical book would be kind of redundant with the access there is for these high school and middle school aged girls on social media. And we just thought the book would sink in a little slower. It'd be a little more of a permanent fixture. They could pick it up and put it down. So yeah, that's kind of a side note on just why the book was a little bit special, even though they have access to these athletes technically at their fingertips with their phones.
Yeah, but I think also it broadens their horizons, it broadened mine, because, yes, we have social media, but we'll follow the people that we know about. What about all these great women that I didn't know about, like the one on the cover?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just, I think it's great. And then also from previous generations, because their journey was not documented on social media. I mean, you can find YouTube videos, but you have to know their name first.
I think the beauty about having a book as well is that you can dip into it and find things that you're not necessarily looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I know there are female athletes in there, so let me just flick through and read one if I have time. Mm-hmm. We'll give our summary probably after we've said goodbye to you, and we don't want to keep you for all of our blah blah at the end. But one of the things I say in my summary is it's kind of a coffee table book as well as an education process. You can have it lying around and just pick it up and read one story, because the stories are so short and concise. You get learning, but you also find out things that maybe you weren't originally looking for.
I think it'd be a great, it's a bedtime storybook for your kids too. When you read to your daughter or your son. My dad would always read me books about athletes and different things when I was growing up, and a lot of them are men. So it's kind of cool to have short stories on women as well, and they're inspirational. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, one of my favorite books in college was Best Efforts by Kenny Moore, and it was all these it was like this book. It has a lot of little chapters, but it was 70% male runners, 30% female. It was something like that is what the way the chapters were divided up. And I remember wanting more of the women's stories, but that Run with the Champions book too was similar, and I loved all the little PRs on the side. I would study all my favorite athletes' PRs and just be amazed, and they almost had us edit those out of the book, and I was like, no, for the little running nerds out there would love those little PRs.
Yeah, I agree. No way. That's one of the highlights. It was so cool to see every time you start a new story, you'd see and it wasn't just their pro PRs, you had kind of broken it down into if they had high school PRs, you'd write those in, and then their college PRs, and then their pro PRs, which I thought was really cool, because you could even, see their progression and see that, in high school they were like they ran times that are very attainable and that probably like a lot of high school runners can aspire to running. So and then they went on to become like much faster. So I thought that was I think it was good that you fought to keep that in there.
The thing that discouraged me was the training programs, how you had some of the speeds, you had some suggested favorite training programs, you had some of the speeds at which you were doing them. I was like, oh yeah, 1K repeats, that looks good, let me see. And then I see how fast you're going around. I go, oh my God.
Yeah, I will say, I hope high school and middle school girls aren't trying to do those workouts. I just remember that Run with the Champions book I loved in high school also had some sample workouts. And it was like the PRs. I just looked at them and was like, wow, one day maybe I could do that. That's so inspiring.
But that was a big push for Molly and I in this book, like that the publishers didn't quite understand. Like I think is really important for girls, like when they're reading this, like we got to show the transformation, like the progression in their times from high school, college, and pro. We envisioned having 3 pictures of each woman from high school, college to pro, so that they could see like the transformation, that it took time, that they were normal high school girls, and then they like as they trained more, got, like they became these professional machines, but like it didn't just happen overnight, that it took, it took time, and that, yeah. So making them more human and having girls see that most of those things are attainable. It took time and training and effort to get to where they were.
Do you have a favorite? Is there one that you think, oh, that's pretty neat? Because I do, and I might tell you my favorite after you tell me yours.
I don't want to say favorite, but I think from a fan standpoint, I loved talking to Lynn Jennings because she's one of the athletes I idolized. So for me to have an excuse to call her was like the best day of 2020 for me, basically.
Yeah. Well, we're finding out at the moment just talking to you two ladies.
I think for me, my favorites were both Elish and Liz McGulkin, and Shalane and her mom Cheryl, because I think it was just so cool to see the generational change, the differences in what they dealt with, and their careers. Like that was really, I don't know, that was really interesting for me to read, like hear about and then read. Like I think Cheryl needs to write her own book. The amount of things that she did in her career, like she patented the first sports bra, which is incredible because they didn't really have any equipment for women. So she was like, we need a bra that's not a underwire bra while we're running. So I guess I'll make it. Yeah. And some of the articles that were written about her and how they had to write them to make people so-called wanting to hear her story or read it, or you could never see them. What was the headline? I can't remember. Pretty Cheryl
tries running. That was an article written about her when
she had run the world record, but she's trying running.
Yes.
So it was just like jaw dropping a little bit, hearing like the way things are dealt with then. But and then to see what Shalane has been able to do is pretty awesome.
What was your favorites?
My favorite is actually Kim Connolly.
Oh.
Kim Connolly is an athlete I'd never heard of before I read the book. I know that's shocking. I'm embarrassed to admit, but what I liked about reading the article about her was the way she didn't have any records going through college, but she just kept chipping away, and she had like a 16-year PR streak where she just kept incrementally just inching. And then she described her qualification for the Olympics at the 5,000 meters in Eugene in 2012. And she describes it to you guys in the book. And I was reading it and I was thinking, oh my God, where's YouTube? I
was going to say, if you haven't found that race, go watch it.
Alan's found it and he's shared it with everybody.
I watched the race. I thought, oh my goodness, send it to Liz quick. Liz, look at this. Send it to everybody. Look at this. And then I thought, I have to watch it again. I have to watch it and ignore the people. Who's that Molly girl running at the front? Ignore her.
That's not where the story is in that race.
Ignore her. Watch the people at the back. It was just, it was absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, Paula Radcliffe is by far my idol because of the UK connection. And I was at the Sydney Olympics when she was running at 10,000 meters, actually in the stadium. So I have like fondness for Paula, but the story of Kim Connolly was absolutely mind-blowing. And if you've never seen, for all our listeners, if you've never seen the qualification race, which well done, Molly, you qualified handsomely in that race, but where Kim Connolly simultaneously breaks the A record requirement, the A time.
She's such an inspiring athlete because she just gave herself a shot. Like I love her story because she had no, like, in a way, she had no reason to believe she would become that good, but she did all the things you would do if you were someone who would win NCAAs and move on after school. She trained at altitude, she put in high mileage, she did the hard races and chipped away, and she ended up being a two-time Olympian. She made 2016, she like lost her shoe in the 10K, came back in the 5K, made it by the skin of her teeth. Like, she's just a gamer, but I think she shows that, like, if you put in the work, you never know where your talent can take you. So
yeah,
we definitely wanted to have Kim in the book.
A brilliant role model.
Yeah.
Do you have one, Liz?
Yes, I've got a couple. So okay, so I have to say that I really, really like Kara Goucher. Because I started to watch like Kara Goucher, Des Linden, and Shalane since the 2012 Olympics, because Canada didn't send any marathoners to the Olympics that year. And so, I looked to you guys down south because, the closest and because you guys have the marathon trials, which we don't really have that. And so I got to watch the marathon trials and I saw these women, and so I've been following them. But I really, really like Kara Goucher because I don't know, I just like feel for her and how she seemed to like overcome obstacles. And finally, I think like a lot of her problems stemmed from lack of confidence, and she still managed to do really, really well in the sport. And I guess I kind of identify with that. But currently, the person that I'm trying to look up to for inspiration is Sara Hall, just because she's in her late 30s. I'm 42, well, almost 42. And I want this sub 3-hour marathon. And so I see that she's still, breaking the US record for half marathon. And I'm like, well, if she can do that, like, there's no reason that I can't break 3 hours for the marathon. So yeah, I currently, like, she's my inspiration for running, I guess.
The depth of women's running was such that when we started the book, Kira D'Amato had not yet started to run professional, like had not reignited her career. And by the time we were done, she had the American record in the marathon. So it's just crazy.
All those, like Sara especially, like she had a lot of years where she was not sure if she was going to continue or was trying to figure out the sport. So her longevity in the career and in the sport and continued progression is really inspiring. She's one of my close friends, and I find her like to be one of the most, like, she's not like she's a very positive person and always like continues to go, but she's a big realist too. So like she doesn't overanalyze things and is like very very good at like being realistic about what she's trying to do. But I think she attributes a lot of it with letting go of like preconceived things and allowing her to like reach her potential later in her career. Because I think for our generation, like Ryan's career was taking off and she was struggling a little bit for a while and like figuring out if like this was in the cards for her, if she should keep going. But like realizing, like letting some of that go and realizing she still enjoyed the sport and she still enjoyed what she was doing and just see what she can do really allowed her to like flourish in the sport. So
I think Sara was one of the first interviews that we did.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just amazing how many years though that she's been running.
That reminds me, someone else I regret we didn't add to the book was Melindy Elmore, who is also like Sara and like Kira, just like finding the marathon and setting the world on fire. Like so inspiring, which, yeah.
She pretty much thought she was retiring and then came back.
Yeah.
So you have lots of inspiration for your sub-3.
I do. It's fantastic. And I love that seeing some of these women in your book, like even Des. I mean, Des, in 2020, she almost made the Olympic team. Like she was 4th. Yeah. So, she's still competing. She's still up there. And it's been decades now.
I think Des is close. Is she 39?
I think she's 39. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so you're seeing more, and I think that was a huge thing, like with women having more resources and being able to like continue training with contracts and having kids and being able to continue their careers. You're seeing, we always thought like you would peak in your late 20s, early 30s, and now we're seeing even more growth into the late 30s. And so I think it's just it's changing our mindset on what we originally thought, just because they're now having like the resources to do this long term, and we're seeing that you can go a lot longer than we thought.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I noticed in your on your webpage for the book, there's a sort of an exercise like for goal setting and things like that. Is that just, well, that's a bit of fun, go and have a look, or would you recommend that people do that either before reading the book or after reading the book? Oh,
Yeah,
Liz is showing us
she
her
printed it out.
printed out version.
We wanted some resources for younger athletes to kind of have like more of an interactive takeaway from the book. And so, yeah, we thought that went nicely with it.
And I think goal setting is huge. Like I don't know, I almost every one of the athletes I know at a high level, and all, like when I was coaching, like we would always sit down each season to like write those out. And there's a huge part of like envisioning what you're doing, putting it on paper, and like seeing it through. And so I think like having the courage to put that on paper or discuss it with someone is big, because then it actually puts that goal into place. And it's crazy how often you'll actually achieve that or get close to achieving that, of those things that you do. So I think, and that's I think Regine also mentions that in her section in the book, but it's hugely impactful. And it helps steer you in the direction you want to go, and helps you make decisions each day on how if that's helpful or not helpful in what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, you can filter all your daily decisions through, is it taking you towards or away from what you wrote down as your objectives?
Yes.
I know these things. My wife actually writes 100 goals at the start of every year.
Wow.
Yes, that's what I say. Oh, wow.
But how many of those does she achieve?
An awful lot.
Yeah.
Because some of them are modest and minor, but and they go right across all aspects of life. So, vacations, children, personal development, exercise.
Yeah, I remember Alan telling me that story about how they would write out all these goals like in the new year. And I mean, the good thing is that, you can always check something off at the end of the year. So it's almost like a confidence boost. So I guess we'll wrap up so that you guys can get on with your day. But I mean, you do have a website for the book, howshedidit.com, howshediditbook.com, and I'll link that in the show notes. But do you have a preference for where people get a copy of the book, or it doesn't really matter to you?
Yeah, anywhere. Like if you go onto our website, there are several places you can buy it: Target, Barnes and Noble, several different bookstores. So any of those that people prefer, Amazon.
Sarah and I will sign a copy if you want if you order it from our website.
And where can people follow you if they want to follow you and find out what you're up to?
So I'm on social media with I'm mostly on Instagram. It's at Sara Slattery, and then I have a Twitter, but I don't use it that often. I think it's Sara Slat Runs or something. At Sara Slat Runs.
Yeah, I can't think of your Twitter name either.
I rarely go on Twitter.
I'm Molly Huddle on both. And we have an Instagram for our book. It's at How She Did It Book, which we try to just use it for doing little spotlights on some of the chapters of the book. We haven't been as active on it lately, but we will get back on there. So yeah, anytime we have a little highlight or a message or a women's running Wisdom Wednesday, we'll put it up.
Great stuff. And probably our last question: what's next for you? What's next on the agenda?
Molly and I have a couple things that we're trying to decide. Like Molly just had a baby, so we've been we've been transitioning like outside of that, but and just with the launch of the book, but there's a few things that we're like looking into, but we told you we have several other stories we'd like to highlight, and there's other ideas for books in the future. So we're not 100%. We have some ideas, but haven't like put them into place yet.
Yeah, and we really want to pair the book with like mentoring athletes in some way, in some more structured way. So we have a lot of plans to put on, we have a lot of goals to put on paper. We probably have 100 goals we could do for 2023, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a lack of ideas, it's a lack of ability to find the
Yes.
time to execute.
We need to clone ourselves.
Yeah. I can recommend retirement, but the trouble is that's going to be a while for you guys.
Our goal and our main goal in writing this is to help other girls have long careers and see more girls continue in the sport long term,
Yeah.
whether it be like in a professional setting or just continue to set goals and achieve goals in running and have healthy lives. So we want to get this to as many young girls and parents and coaches as possible so that they have this knowledge and can help.
Absolutely. Just in time for people to think about their Christmas presents.
Yes. Yep.
And also think about setting their goals for the new year.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
It's a double benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Thank you again.
Alan, do you want to start with your opinion?
Yeah, let me just give my summary. Well, the athlete stories are super well done and nicely laid out. And I think they're long enough so you get a good insight into the athlete, but short enough to keep your interest. There's another one coming around, so nice balance there. As I said during the chat, the best story for me was Kim Connolly. And if you are a runner of any description, go to YouTube, find the 2012 Olympic qualification for the 5,000 meters, which was held in Eugene, and watch it. I would challenge you not to have to watch it at least twice because of Kim Connolly's performance in that. There are some excellent insights and advice that we can all use. One of my favorites was Marla Runyon, who says, distance running is a sport of faith. That sort of resounded with me because what she means, not that you have to believe in God to do it, but that you have to have faith that all your training is going to work because you can't test it out. When you're running a marathon, you only find out on marathon day that it's going to work. You have to have faith that all your training is working. The photos and performance summary pages for each athlete are really good. We talked about the PRs. We thought that was good. And the funny section at the back, the sort of little outtakes of funny things, Portaloo problems with elite athletes and stuff like that. It's kind of fun. I think the book's also good for the boys as well as the ladies. You know, probably everything except the hormonal health section applies. And even that is important to you if you're a coach or you're the parent of a female athlete. The book's a great read. The stories are excellent, but also I think it's a coffee table book you can leave out and dip into if you want. Good Christmas gift.
So I guess I'll echo some of that. I love the stories, but I also love the look of the book. I thought the layout was perfect for fans of the sport. Each athlete profile had like a large photo of the athlete and all their running PBs from high school all the way through college and into their professional years. So really well done. Of course, not all of them had all of the categories of times, but a lot of them, did have all of those. And it was very diverse in terms of athletes of different nationalities and different events. So I would say even, there was 400 through to marathon because some of the runners were 400, 800, 1500 meter athletes. So a lot of track athletes, even steeplechase runners were featured in there. So that was great because it included athletes from different events. I loved all the names that I was able to recognize, like Paula Radcliffe, Dina Castor, two of my favorites, which is Kara Goucher and Des Linden. And of course, I mentioned that my current inspiration, Sara Hall, she was also in there. But there were also runners that I didn't know about before, but I also found inspiring. And one of those was the cover athlete, Patty Catalano Dillon. She was a Native American runner, and it seemed like she would just run everything at 100% effort. And that's kind of how the cover picture looks.
She looks like she's giving it 110.
Exactly. Yep. I think the book is great. For fans of the sport, it's also motivation for, everybody else. And it's inspiring because, all of these athletes have had challenges, and there is a surprisingly long list of serious injuries that some of them have overcome. They didn't just recover, but they also got to the next level in their performance. And it can help us all believe in our own capability and our own body's ability to repair itself. Great book.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to the publisher, Penguin Random House, for providing review copies of the book to Liz and I. A great big thank you to Molly and Sara for spending time with us today. If you would like to leave us some feedback about how we can improve our podcast, or want to suggest a book for us to review in future episodes, leave us a comment on social media. On Facebook and Instagram, we are Running Book Reviews, and on Twitter, we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about episodes when they're released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and you'd like to try and contribute, if you're enjoying the podcast, spread the word. Tell your friends about us, or share a link of your favorite episode with a running partner. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. This is how you listen to the podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify. We're also on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can read and listen to some special extras and outtakes. And if you want, you can buy us a coffee. That's all for today from Running Book Reviews. Bye.
Bye.